Hey, what's going on, guys? With the Planes remaster, we got an update to the Arcanes in Cetus. Now, instead of buying blueprints for rep and then building the Arcanes with resources from the Planes of Eidolon, Arcanes now purely cost rep, so we don't have to waste tons and tons of resources building Arcanes, which was the most intensive part. This is a straight up nerf to the overall grind in Cetus, and that's a really good thing for players. So because of this change, I was finally able to get all the Arcanes, and I thought it'd be a good idea to go over them just like I went over the Voxelaris Arcanes from Fortuna. So here I'll be covering the Quills Arcanes, which include the Operator Magus Arcanes and the Amp Virtuous Arcanes. Some of them are really good, and some of them I'm not sure why they exist. So in case you were not aware, in order to access the Quills at all, you have to complete both Saya's Vigil as well as the War Within quest. Once you've completed both those quests, you'll be able to access the Quills with your Operator in Cetus. To access them, just take a right from Kanzu here, walk up the side area to this door that opens when you transfer into your Operator form. Without an Operator form or completing the War Within as well as Saya's Vigil, you won't be able to access this area. And like how Voxelaris is basically the Orb rep in Fortuna, the Quills are the Eidolon rep in Cetus. And you can rank them up with sentient cores that drop from Vomvalis as well as the Eidolons. Anyways, I just want to quickly cover how you get to the Quills. Now let's take a look at the Magus Arcanes. And we're going to start out with Magus Vigor. The text on this arcane reads that transferring out of a Warframe grants the Operator additional health. And you'll see this language repeated a couple times in the Cetus Arcanes. All this means in Magus Vigor's case is that your Operator gains plus 200 health permanently, because you're only ever going to see your Operator when it's transferred out of the Warframe, so I don't really understand why the language says transferring out grants it additional health. You're just getting plus 200 health on your Operator. And with Magus Vigor, as with all Magus Arcanes, you can equip 2 of them, so you can have plus 400 health on your Operator if you want to. It's important to note here that the additional health is applied before your Waybound passives. So if you're not aware, Vazarin's passive, Enduring Tides, gives your Operator up to 150% increased additional health. So by equipping one of these Magus Vigors as well as having the passive active, your Operator's total health becomes 1,125, which is much higher than your Operator's base, 250 health without any bonuses. Although if you are going for effective health on your Operator, I would instead choose Magus Husk instead of Magus Vigor. Magus Husk is an arcane that works the exact same way, except for this time it gives your Operator armor instead of health. So here with Husk, we gain 100 armor instead of 200 health. And just like with Vazarin's Enduring Tides, we also have Inaru's Basilisk Scales that gives you plus 200% armor for your Operator. If all you're looking for in your Operator is survivability, then equipping 2 Magus Husks is actually going to be the most beneficial way to gain effective health. Not that Magus Vigor is bad, it's just a little less effective health than Magus Husk is. And again, because you can equip 2 Magus Arcanes at the same time, you can equip 1 Magus Vigor and 1 Magus Husk if you're so inclined. Although I really recommend running a healing arcane on your Operator at all times, whether that be Magus Repair or Magus Elevate, which I'll talk about now. Magus Elevate gives you a 75% chance to heal your Warframe for 200 health every time you transfer out of it. This means that you can just spam transfer until your Warframe is completely healed. With most Warframes, this is going to be a very good source of healing, because as you can see, if I just transfer back and forth, I get all my health back very quickly. So for me, one of my arcane slots is always going to be either Magus Elevate or Magus Repair, just for Warframe healing. And I went over Magus Repair in my previous video, which I'll link to below the video in the description. Both of these are very good options, and I recommend having at least one at all times. In the same vein of healing, Magus Replenish will heal your Operator instead of your Warframe. So with this arcane, every time you Void Dash, you have a 100% chance to restore 20% health to your Operator. The main use for an arcane like this would be for when your Operator is taking a lot of damage, such as during the Eidolon fight, but overall I really wouldn't say it's very useful, because when Operators die, you can simply just transfer back into the Operator and it has full health again. Typically, Operators aren't going to need as much healing as Warframes will, and that's why you have Magus Elevate and Magus Repair instead of Magus Replenish. With Magus Nurse, we have another healing arcane, and with this arcane, while you're transferred out of your Warframe, the Warframe is going to heal 25 health a second until you transfer back into the Warframe. Magus Nurse is basically just a crappy Magus Repair. You can basically just forget about this arcane in its current state. Magus Cadence is an interesting arcane because it'll give your Operator 60% sprint speed whenever you Void Dash. So for whatever reason, if you want to sprint instead of Void Dashing, this will increase your speed. But honestly, it's only good for role-playing like you're in an anime or something. If you're going to be moving with your Operator, you're going to be Void Dashing, let's be real here. You're not going to be sprinting around. And that Magus Arcane slot's a valuable arcane slot for something else, rather than like just random sprint speed that you're never going to actually use. But for all you anime role players out there, I found the arcane for you. And last but definitely not least of the Magus Arcanes, we have Magus Cloud. Magus Cloud makes you immune to fall damage. That's right, immune to fall damage. I know you guys were really concerned about fall damage in Warframe, and then Magus Cloud was added in Plains of Eidolon, and everybody breathed a sigh of relief because, oh my god, does fall damage hurt. I mean, look at this damage. Look at that. That could kill you if you did it like 10, maybe like 20 times in a row. Like, you could die to that. But now if you're using Magus Cloud, that's never going to happen. I think I found the best arcane in the game with Magus Cloud, guys. So buy your Magus Clouds now and sell them before people get wind of this, because oh my god, is it good. Oh, and I just want to clarify here that this only applies to operators, right? Because Warframes don't take fall damage anyways. So make sure you take your hard-earned sentient cores to Onco with the Quills and buy Magus Cloud now. Go ahead, just pause the video and I'll wait, and we'll come back to the arcane overview. Alright, now that everybody has a Magus Cloud, let's talk about the Virtuous Arcanes, which are the amp arcanes that are offered from the Quills. First up, we have Tempo, which gives you a 60% chance on kill to increase your fire rate by 60%. This can be good on some amps because it'll increase your fire rate, and by increasing your fire rate, you increase your DPS. But overall, I wouldn't say this is a very good damage arcane. There are some better ones that I'm going to be talking about in a second. And because this isn't used for Eidolons, you're probably not going to be using it. Next up, we have Strike. Strike gives your amp a 20% chance on critical hit to increase crit damage by 60%. This is a pretty good arcane for damage, and I would rank it probably third in terms of the best Eidolon arcanes. Crits on the Eidolons are very good, and with this, it increases your crit damage, which is just even better. However, the fact that you have to proc it with a crit makes it a little less reliable than something like Virtuous Shadow, which actually just increases your overall crit chance. And it's going to be less beneficial for the lower tier amps, especially if you don't have access to all the different amp parts. Which brings me to Fury, which I think is a much better alternative for people just starting out with the Eidolons, because this arcane just gives your amp a 30% flat damage bonus. To proc it, you'll need to cause a status effect, which is pretty easy with most amps, especially if you're running the Shraxon Scaffold early on, which has a guaranteed impact proc. So if you're just firing your amp over and over again at the Eidolon, you're probably going to maintain Virtuous Fury very easily, and it's better on the lower tier amps than Virtuous Strike is. Because of that, I rank this probably the second best Eidolon arcane. Which brings me to the absolute best Eidolon arcane, which is Shadow. Shadow is going to give you the most DPS against Eidolon shields, and that's because it gives you crit chance. So by pairing Shadow with an amp that has high crit chance, you're going to be dealing the most damage possible to the Eidolons. If you want to know more about that, I have a video that goes in depth into amp damage against Eidolon shields, which I'll link below in the description. The thing that's really nice about Shadow with the Eidolons is that you can actually dash into the Eidolon's head in order to proc Shadow, instead of shooting into the Eidolon's head and wasting a Void Strike stack. If anyone's curious, there are two main ways to proc this. One is by dashing back and forth against the Eidolon's head, and the other is by dashing to the Eidolon's chin and then spamming your Void Dash button over and over and over again until you get the proc. I'll probably be making another video about this later on that goes into how to do this in detail, but these are the two main techniques. So if you are planning to do more advanced Eidolon runs, then Shadow is going to be the arcane you want to pursue for your amp. Next up we have Ghost, which is the exact same thing as Shadow, but for status chance. And status chance on amps is not really very good at all, so this arcane is just not very good. You can use it if you want to proc a status for whatever reason, but honestly I wouldn't recommend wasting your standing on Ghost. And then finally we have Virtuous Null, that gives your operator 20% amp energy regen for 4 seconds whenever you get a kill. Maybe if you're using your operator in normal missions to kill things, then this will be worth it, but overall, not worth the rep investment. Especially because the amp doesn't actually regen the energy when you're firing, which means that you need to actually stop firing in order to get the regen, and I just think that does not make sense for the amp. But that's going to do it for this video covering the Quills Arcanes. If you have any questions about an arcane I covered or I missed something, please leave a comment below. And if you found the video helpful, please do leave a like, that helps me out. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you're all having a good one, and I'll see you later.